Hi there, from Custom Home Builder Solutions, also known as CHS, a job costing, full accounting, and profit management software for the professional home builder. This is a continuation in a series of videos about posting payables, bills, and other deductions from your bank account, like cash debits you do on your debit card, or quick manual checks that you've written that you didn't print in CHS. Credit card charges will be talked about in their own series of tutorials about posting credit card charges and paying the credit card company and setting all that up. But let's quickly talk about doing some cash debits, maybe using your debit card. And anything that's going to be deducted from your bank accounts will all be entered on the window where you're actually posting, where it calls vendor bills, because it's so designed to make deductions from your checking account. But one thing I'd like to show you, when you run around using a debit card, or also even your credit cards when we get to there, you might use this same vendor for that. But I set up vendors like gas, because I don't want to set up, a whole bunch of different kinds of gas companies as vendors when I'm just using my debit card there. A good one is restaurants. You don't want to be setting up all these restaurants as your vendors. So I just make a vendor called restaurant. You could have a vendor called lodging or hotels, something like that. So that's a good idea to do that, and then you could post all those various debits to that particular vendor without junking up your whole vendor list. So let's take a look at, let's play like we had a gas charge. But let's take a look at that vendor and how I set it up. I just called it gas, and in my default description I just put gas dash this, and I set up a default GL account for vehicle expenses to my overhead account, and no default cost code, because I'll be just posting these probably not to job costs. You, of course, when you enter a bill to gas, could select a different GL number and use a cost code and apply it to a job if you need to, but it's just kind of handy to set up vendors like that. Let's look at my restaurant one real quickly. We'll just look at the setup and also watch other videos about setting up vendors in the vendor setup area. But I have this one GL account. Actually, we decided in this company that when we're at restaurants that it's part of our travel expense. You could, of course, change it to entertainment or some meetings or some other GL account that drops in. And I put restaurant and dash and overhead as my default. And I just set up a vendor called restaurant. So anyway, let's just sort of demonstrate that. But first, well, let me first go show you also, I also have a vendor set up for my bank. Now let's say the bank is always charging me a monthly service charge, so that's just a deduction out of my bank account that I don't really write a check for, but you will still post it here, and you will most likely post it in the Create Bill screen, because most of the time your bank fees aren't charged to jobs. Unless you want them to be, you could use that first button for doing job costing. So I had a default description on my bank of WTNB service charge, a default GL of bank fees. I have it going to my overhead department, and let's say it's the end of the month, or let's post last month's, since we're a little ahead of the end of the month there, and you just put January 2016 and leave that description, and let's play like they charge us $12. So that debit is on our bank statement. Just a lot of times this is when you'll see it, and so you run over here and get it posted so that you get your cash account in balance. So I will just go ahead and submit this, and then what I want to show you is how I just go ahead and post it as paid. See, this says post payment or print check. So I want to use that same date that I used, January 31st. It is defaulting to that checking account, WTNB, because that's what I have set up on my company master. And I like to use, for things that are not really checks, I'll use something like a 1 and a period and 6 digits for the date. And I'm going to show you something else about that here in just a minute. And I tabbed so that it could go ahead and check. And I'm suggesting that here, use tab key, because it's, basically it's going to give you a little moment saying I'm looking for duplicates. So if you just type it in and then jump down and click this button to post as paid, sort of like nothing will happen, because you need to let it check, give you that message, and then have that message go away. So what I'm going to do is just post this as paid and not print a check, because I don't have a check, and it's going to deduct it from my bank account. If I wanted to, I could look at the posted entries, and attach things and write notes. If there's some weird reason I want to do that, I could write notes, attach a copy of something. Maybe if it's a manual check, I'm attaching a copy of the manual check, or even the bill. This is being attached to the bill line. But I showed that a little bit in some other videos, and we'll show it again here in a bit. So let's close that. Now let's play like we're just posting, maybe we look up things online to see what debits we've made. So we went to lunch or something while we were traveling, so we're doing a quick bill for that. And I'm going to use the same date because I want to make a little point about that. So let's play like this restaurant charge was on January 31st also. And I usually just use for the, when there's not any invoice number or anything, I'll use 6 digits for the date. And we have our restaurants defaulting to travel, so let's play like that happened while we traveled to Dallas. I don't know. And let's play like our meal cost us $75.82, or 32 cents, what I accidentally typed. Let's go ahead and get that one posted, and I'll submit that one and post the payment. So I'm doing January 31st on that one also as the day it came out of my bank account. But now notice when I do 1 period and 01/31/16, that's what I wanted to demonstrate, it's going to stop and tell me, because CHS is designed to let you know if you're maybe accidentally putting in a same check number to start a check run or something, to let you know that this is a duplicate. So when I get that message, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a 2 in 01/31/16. And you can always click this for a list of previous checks that you've used. In this case, because of how I'm doing that style, all of those are probably down here. All the 2s are together because they're sorted by check number on this report. But it's not, I know it's not really a check number, but it's a document ID that you do have to use so that it can deduct it from your bank account with that number and keep the detail behind it and mark the entries that you just posted as paid. So I'm posting that as paid. So I think you get the idea. You could, of course, just maybe used your debit card to pay Joe the plumber or something else and use, a real vendor, and also do that very same type of thing. Well, let's do one. There's one thing I think I remember for contractor services that we still have out on our job. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play like I wrote contractor services a check for doing, I think it was some sort of survey or something. But say I wrote them a check out in the field, or wrote it ahead of time for whatever reason. We're not going to deduct liability and workers' comp from them, and we been over all that in another videos. So let's do well, actually, I think it said we had a PO, so let's get this filled in quickly. This is our demo job. It's $95 for site survey is what it was. And so I just selected that so we get all these fields filled in and the cost code and all the amount, and that's the amount of the check that we gave them, and that kind of thing. Or maybe we gave them a check. Let me just do another line because I saw that there was a PO out for a different job. So we're adding a new blank record. We'll go ahead and select the other PO. And so maybe we wrote them a manual check for $190, which is the combination of both these lines. And as I said before, you do not have to use POs. They sure are handy, as you can see. But you could have filled all these fields in, and we've been over all these fields and where these numbers come from, so I won't talk about that anymore. We're just talking about posting some manual check. And like I said, it doesn't have to be one attached to a PO. Anyway, so we're ready to submit this for a manual check. And apparently I have some error because we don't have a default GL for this vendor. We should have put a default GL on the vendor setup for this vendor so it would have dropped in for us. But at least CHS lets me know that I don't have a GL account for my financials on here by turning them red. So let's go ahead and play like today is when we paid them. And we'll submit. Checked for overages, didn't find any. So what I'm going to do, since I wrote a manual check, is use this button. I'm not going to post as unpaid to pay later so that it's in a list of unpaid accounts. I'll post the payment. So let's just leave today's date in and figure out what check we probably used for them. So you see a list of previous checks sorted in descending order, so let's just use 3039. Just checking to see if that's a duplicate, and I will post it as paid. All right, what I would like to show you, hopefully that helps you understand how to post debit charges. Like I said, most anything that gets taken out of your bank account should be posted on this window, and this should probably give you a good idea of how you'd be doing that. Manual checks or debits to your checking account, etc. We will discuss credit cards and credit card payments in another video, like I said. But I want to jump over real quick and show you about those check numbers, those funny check numbers I was using for debit cards on a bank rec, because I'm just thinking about that, and it's a little tip. We've been using this checking account to post our stuff, so I'll open the bank rec for that. And the first thing you usually do for a bank rec is you do search, and you can watch videos about bank rec, but you say, I want all of them that have not been marked as cleared the bank or on statement. And I want to see all my entries, let's play like it's now the end of the month, through this date that are not included on a statement. So this means it will also include, say there was something dated in January that hadn't cleared yet at the end of when I was doing my bank rec in January. But this really isn't a video totally about doing bank recs. But what I wanted to show you is about those check numbers I'm using. First of all, oops, I think I told it yes on statement. I meant to say no, not on statement. It has not been marked as cleared. What I wanted to show you is how you can see those check numbers, right? So right here you can see these 1s and 2s, etc. And since this is sorted in check number order for convenience, when you're trying to do a bank rec, what I'll usually do is leave it in the check number order, and I'll go to the section on my bank statement that is for real check numbers, because they usually have that in a different place than other debits and charges, etc. So I'll start checking these off, as cleared, if they are cleared, etc. And then I will resubmit my search, which means they'll go away, the ones that I've checked, because I said I only want ones that aren't checked, basically not on the statement. And so these would all go away after I checked them off. And then I'll use the sort features, because if you'll notice, since this is trying to sort, well, it sorts by date, then by check number. These are actually in an okay order. But if I've used some bizarre temporary check numbers, and so it's all kind of weird, I will click here on the entry date and tell it to sort by the entry date, which is a lot easier for doing these various debits. And it's very clear that these are debits because they're not a normal check number, so that's easy to spot. But you might need to sort those by entry date because they may not fall in an order that you like so much by check number. So you can click on, notice how the entry date will sort by entry date all of a sudden, so that you can see these sorted that way. But after you've cleared out your regular checks, since it comes in check order usually, I usually will click this to sort it by check and then do the checks, and then I'll do these miscellaneous debits and check them off and sort them by date, because that'll be closer to how they are on the bank statement. That was just a little tip for you to realize how you're dealing with those sort of different check numbers, that fake check numbers that you give them for debit charges, etc. So that's how basically you post a manual check and you post other debits to your bank account, also on the Post Payables window. Thank you for watching.